Mike's Daily Podcast.
FF episode 1854. There we go.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
1854, that was a year where people wore old hats like stovepipe hats, and they would walk around and they'd go, "Hello, miss, would you like to dance?" And they would dance, and there would be these trains going by blowing lots of steam in the air.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
There you go, the history according to Mike. Not a drunk history. I am not drunk. It's Mike's Daily Podcast. That's right. It's live from Cafe Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, today, and the last place on Earth. Well, I was going to do a podcast on Wednesday. What happened? Power outage. That's right. The good old power went goodbye kaput. And it makes me wonder, because I can't really do a podcast without power at Cafe Anyway in Podcastro Valley. There was no power. And I spoke with someone the next day saying, hey, because he's a solar power dude. He puts solar power. He's got a huge solar power company. He installs it in people's roofs in their homes. And I asked him, I go, hey, what do you think caused it? And he goes, douchelas. And I said, really? Yeah? And he goes, yeah. Well, have you seen any new douchelas in your neighborhood? I said, yes. Everybody in the freaking Bay Area's got a douchela now. And he goes, well, the power grid can't handle it. It blew out the infrastructure, and they're not proactive about that. They replace things once they've gone kerplooey, something like that. And I said, okay. So there we go. Now we have that answer to that question. And
here's today's podcast picture.
The podcast picture, I believe today, is of the engineer dude who happens to be in here right now. Let's say hi to the engineer dude. Hello to you, engineer dude. Hello, Mike Matthews. It's really nice to be here. It's John Deere, the engineer. What's new with you? What have you been thinking about lately? What's on your mind? Well, I've been thinking a lot about the Zodiac Killer. Zodiac Killer, yes. We live in the Bay Area. And there was a Zodiac... Oh, you know what? You're not in the podcast picture today. Sorry. I'm really bummed out now. Yeah, it's your friend and partner in life, this guy. Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman. Yeah. He's watching too much Zodiac Killer stuff. Hey, Basil. Yeah, I don't know. It has captured the imagination of the humans in the world, the Zodiac Killer thing. Robert Downey Jr. is in that movie. Oh, speaking of movies, and ones that I thought might be good, and then I started watching, and my lovely lady friend said no. We started watching The Wandering Earth, because we don't shy away from subtitles. We don't shy away from that. Why not give it a try? And it's on Netflix now. And apparently this was like the biggest movie in China. And I guess the Chinese government had something to do with making it. And Alibaba, the biggest. It's bigger than freaking Amazon, if you believe that. If you can believe that. Can you? I think you can. Alibaba is huge in China. Bigger than Amazon. And so they had a stake in this movie. And so you can see it. I mean, they spent a ton of money on this movie. With the special effects are insane. It has to do with the Earth. The sun has gotten too big. It's starting to explode or something. So they're like, we got to move the Earth. So the top scientists and engineers like you, John Deere. Yes, I worked on this project. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's actually the Wandering Earth Project. That was the name of the project, which a wandering Earth is not is it the wandering Earth or the migrating Earth or something? So they have these they put jets on the Earth. That's right. They create these huge jets that are like bigger than the tallest mountains. And they put these on Earth, and then it propels the Earth through space. And all that part was fascinating. We were loving that part. And then all of a sudden it starts getting into this story about a teenager, and he looks a little like Mario Brothers, and he grabs some young girl that's basically an infant, and let's go with me, and they're in love and they're off, and then we just turned it off. And then I watched a thing on Chicago, not the town, not the musical, but the group. Only the beginning. What's fascinating about Chicago is in the beginning, so I grew up basically in the 80s listening to Chicago after they had gone full on corporate rock with their big old ballads. You're the inspiration. And the one, everybody needs a little time away. Hold me now. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry. And all those. But back when they first started, they were almost like a prog rock American big horn rock band. And they were rocking out, and they had these huge long songs. And it wasn't until they took one of their songs and chopped it up and did some serious editing to it, the people at the record company, and turned it into a single. That would be the song Make Me Smile. The original is huge, really long, and then they shortened it down to just a couple of. So, to sum up, Chicago is a great band that went corporate, but in the early days, very experimental. What happened was money. They made too much money, and they got too much into cocaine, and they got too much into the lavish lifestyle of just overindulgence of all kinds, and it just corrupted them. So when I was a kid, I was thinking, someday I want to be a pop singer. I want to say, I didn't really know how to sing. I didn't really get into singing until I was late teens. And then I was writing songs, and I thought, someday I'll be a pop star. I'll be huge. And then I thought, as I got older, it's tough writing songs. I mean, you have to keep writing them. And if you're a pop star, the record company demands that you keep writing big songs, big hits. And it just never ends. It feeds itself. It's a huge monster. And Mr. Jimi Hendrix said something to the guys in Chicago as we go outside a cafe anyway, where we're bringing a Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Jimmy said to them, because they're like, hey, Jimmy, it must be great to be popular. And Jimi Hendrix goes, yeah, you know what, at some point. And Jimi Hendrix's career was not that long. He died, of course, too young. And he says to them, it's tough. You got to keep writing stuff. You got to keep coming up with new music. Your record label demands this stuff. This is Jimi Hendrix talking. He is a god, a rock god to us today. The guitar solos and songs and his voice and his image. Am I right? That reverberates, the rock reverberates through him. So, he tells Chicago, who opened for him on several tour dates throughout the country in those early days, in the early 70s, and he says to them, you're going to someday deal with this problem. He said that to them, and they were like, well, that's a problem we want to have. Well, they got that problem. And so I'm about halfway through. I have to say, though, this documentary, you have to really like Chicago to get into this documentary, because it is just so... yeah, we're the best band ever. Yeah. We came up with this song. Yeah. 25 or 6-4. Yeah. God, it's hard to talk like that. So, to sum up, it is fascinating, though, because it makes you, after watching that, go, maybe I don't want to be a rock star. Maybe I'm glad I didn't do it. Maybe I'm glad I wasn't Jimi Hendrix, etc. So be happy with what you are is what I'm telling you. Be happy, because you are fantastic. Just the way you... No, what was the big song? That was, of course, Billy Joel. Bum, 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 bum. If you leave me now. Oh, that was the whole interesting thing about Peter Cetera. In the early days, he wasn't writing anything. And they had this band rule that everyone got a chance to write and sing at some point in the band. Everyone got a piece of it. And so they gave Peter Cetera a chance, and oh my gosh, that song became their first number one. Ooh, baby, please don't go. But I am going to go because this show's got to wrap up. And I didn't even get to Underworld. Underworld is on the TV outside here at Cafe Anyway for some bizarre reason. There was Underworld. There was a couple Underworlds, weren't there, with Kate Beckinsale? And it's the vampires versus the werewolves, and it is just ridiculous because it's been on for a while outside here. And as I watch the TV, I notice the same characters die and come back to life. It's like a really bad video game, these movies, but it was all the rage like 10 years ago. And then, what is this word? So I guess basically beware of indulgences. If you're getting a little too much into the indulging, maybe you perhaps need to back it up and see what life is really about. Because in the end, that's what I got from the Chicago story. Not the Chicago story, but the story about Chicago, the band. Chicago Transit Authority. That's what they were called originally. And one of the guys who, they all had drug problems. All were addicted to cocaine at one point. And he said, once I got off that stuff, I really enjoyed life a lot more. And that fascinates me. And it's true. Hey, look who else is here.
Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, the shop supervisor. Those are words of wisdom.
They are. Look who else is here. Oh, you guys. Yeah, we're still here. I'm still looking for the Zodiac Killer. Well, that's the end of the show. So, are you going to go up on the roof and put some solar power up there so we never have a power outage again? Yeah, I'll get right on that, Mike. Sarcasm. Okay, next show, it'll be the wonderful Benita the Disgruntled Fiddle Player and the Bremaster. Tell me what you think of these topics that we have covered today. You can email me, MikesDailyPodcast1854Rooves, or call me 336-MM-Daily. The podcast picture is of Floyd the Floorman, so go to MikesDailyPodcast.com and check it out right now. And here's Ariel to tell us more about it.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!
By the way, I'm going to be on the radio if you are anywhere in Walnut Creek, Benicia, Upper Contra Costa County, anywhere in that area. You can catch me on Sunday morning and every Sunday morning on a sunny Sunday morning as summer begins on 92.1 FM. That's 92.1 FM KKDV. All right, I'll talk to you then and play some music for you. Listen, or you can listen online too at kkdv.com. Okay, just thought I'd plug myself there. All right, I'm going to hit stop now. But more importantly, go to MikesDailyPodcast.com because I pay for that dang website.